So, good afternoon. I mentioned this, I think, in my earlier video that I had to do some maintenance on my air conditioning system. And as we can see, the gaskets here, these O-rings have gone completely flat. And this is basically where they are leaking. And so you can get a full view here. We can see this here. We can see nicely in here. See if we can rotate this thing. Yeah, there we go. We can see that this is still working, and we have some wear on it. So you can see the marks here from the rings. And I'm going to drain the oil now out. I got the correct oil. There's two versions of this pack 46 around. One is for 134A, and the other one is for 1234HY. The 1234HY will not work properly. It will work sort of, but not correctly. And we can see here too that this is an aftermarket no-name brand AC compressor one of the previous owners had put in here. I would say this is probably one of them $150 to $300 units. It is not a remanufactured one, but it is a brand new one. So I would say, looking at the O-rings are not hard. I'll show you how dirty this thing is. I cannot get this here off. Someone screwed that in like crazy. Let me just show you the O-rings with the peeler here and see what we got. You can see they're still pliable, but they have been squeezed in there and they're flat. They have just flattened out. I mean, look at this. Let me see if we can get a better picture of this puppy here when we zoom in. Let me zoom in. Let me see if I can get a better background to zoom. Yeah. Now we can see it and how they have flattened out. So they're still soft, but they flattened. And this is what this looks like when you get these leaks where the Freon goes out over a period of time. Now, some people have made videos and they showed this gasket here. This was the original gasket or O-ring for the manifold here where they hook up. And if you have the original compressor in here, the R12 compressor, R11, whatever that was, then you will need these O-rings. Any one of the aftermarket or rebuilt ones, they got a new housing here on top, and they will not work with those. Let me see, I have the other ones here too. Let me see if they're too big or not. No, they will fit right in it. Yeah, those are the correct ones. I got, so I can reassemble this. And I believe these ones here will also fit on this side here. Let me just peel that one off. I don't want to get this too dirty. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to change the fluid. And you can see this one here too is flattened out. So they're still okay. They just have gone flat. You can see this, they're round. And this one here will fit in here as well. And they will squeeze in and they will compress this down and then they fill this out. So these both here on this manifold here, they both take the same ones, and I ordered 6 of them. And with that, I'm going to show you in the next segment now on how much oil we're getting out of it. And then we're going to put this thing back together. Okay, so now I got this drained out. And this is how much came out of the compressor and out of this hose. And out of here. That means the system was almost empty. Plus that little bit I got on the floor, which looks like coolant, but it isn't. This is the stuff with the dye in it. And I cleaned this out here, and I use isopropyl alcohol. This is the stuff I use. This is industrial grade, 99+% safe on plastic, 0 residues, non-corrosive. And we can see that the person who had worked on this before has used that sealant. You can spray in there or suck in, you know, and this is these little white residues on here. This stuff is that stuff which foams out and goes into all these little crevices, and that's basically what you get with these sealants. And that's not a big deal. I cleaned it out, I sprayed everything out, and I flushed it out with alcohol. I also took out the little Schrader valve, which is in here, to inspect it. Let me see if I can get a good picture of it. You can see what the Schrader valve actually looks like it with 300 zoom. This is basically what this thing looks like it. And she works, and it doesn't look like it that the seal is bad on it. And she moves up and down easily, so she has no restrictions on it. So the Schrader valve, these 4 O-rings here, these here, and then these here. And what most people do, most mechanics, is they will replace these O-rings when they fix the system, but they never take this out and get these O-rings replaced, and they never change the Schrader valve. And all of them can cause a leak. And this is the slow leaking stuff where every other month you may have to put 1 ounce or 2 ounces of Freon in it, or R134, and you know, to keep the system from going. This is what started last year. So these O-rings flattened out last year in the summer. I think it was by August when I had to fill some of the stuff in. This here is a Mercedes-Benz part, as we can see. And you can see my conversion adapter on here. This is this here, but unfortunately I cannot read the part number. And this is an old part, because this is the old Mercedes-Benz sticker they had on there until I think 2000, 99 or 2000. So this part here is original from Mercedes-Benz. This here was probably made by a shop which makes pressure hoses, because we can barely read it, but there's a Conti GAC 44. No date on it, I don't think so. There could be 1999, it could not be. But this was a custom-made part. And these are the 2 O-rings, the 2 black ones, which came out. And you can see on how flat they are actually, what they look like. So I have to replace them. I have one more O-ring in here, which sits right in here in this thing, and I have to get a pair of pliers or tweezers to get that O-ring moved out of there. And then I have to work my way around it. I put a new receiver dryer in here back in 2021. This is what that looks like it. So the O-rings here, and this O-ring here probably has to be replaced for that line, and I think the other one should be okay. But this is kind of what I'm having to do here. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this thing here closed off and filled up probably with 150 milliliters of a new oil, because there's so little oil in here that you can't even measure this. I would say we're probably looking at 1/4 ounce of oil. And I don't think that there's much more on the floor than this. You can see it right here. This is the stuff here. This came out, it dripped out of the hose basically all around it. I got on here too, I gotta clean that off, just seeing this. So I would say we probably got 1 ounce out of a total of 4 ounces what the system about needs. And I'm probably gonna put 3 ounces into the compressor and then see how it goes. If you have too much oil in there or a high level of oil, then the AC cooling temperature later on is gonna be not as cold as if you're running low on oil. So as colder your car actually gets, it's an indication, the AC gets, is more of an indication you have is that you're running lower and lower on oil. So that's why you need to check the temperature on the outlets, on the vents, when you, when you put the system together and you test it, that you're running it like 45 degrees. That's about what it is. If you get below 45 degrees like I did, I got 36 or 37 degrees out of it. This is because of that little bit of oil. There's less oil, there's more freon, is more, is colder the temperature is going to be. Not a bad thing, but eventually the compressor goes out. And again, this is a Chinese one. This is an aftermarket version. Is a no-name brand one. I couldn't find any stickers, any names, anything on here. It is just probably, it's pre-Amazon. I would think probably mid-2000s when they first started the Surface. And I probably, the owner before the last owner put this in here. And so probably I will have to buy a new compressor in the next year, 2 years, or 3 years from now. We will see, but for the moment, we're going to use this until it kicks the bucket, and then we vacuum the system. I have this machine here where I can do vacuum and recycling, but I didn't need it because this had bled itself out since October. That was the last time I needed the air conditioning. So in about 4 months, 5 months period, when it was cold and the car was outside, all of this shrunk even more from the cold temperature, and it stopped sealing and all the freon came out. Next part will be, I'm going to show you when I have this assembled. Okay, so now we're coming to the next part. There is a whole bunch of crap floating around out there on the internet and on YouTube on how to fill these things and how much they actually need. And I'm going to show you this. For the Nippon Denso compressors, the Mercedes-Benz issued a service bulletin. Technical modifications, air conditioning 1B, model 126. And here you have them all listed. And here in September 85, it changed over. And it is under this service bulletin that you will find the correct amounts of fluids needed, oil, and the torques for the Nippon Denso compressor. We have for 183,526, and then we have 83,522, which show this. And in this particular case, we have the 8-cylinder, which is a 10P17, which is this puppy here, as you see it. But it is the Chinese knockoff on this. And this one, the only difference between a 10PA17 and the 10P17 is this top piece here of the manifold. The compressor is exactly the same. Now, we're going to take a look at this here, and you will see under the engine 103, which is the 6-cylinder, which uses the PA17, you got basically the same compressor as you have, and here you have all of the numbers in here. For the torques, 23, and then we have a little bit here. Oil level in compressor is 120 cubic centimeters, which is 120 milliliters. And we have the same thing here for the Nintendo AC compressor as of January 1983 when they were first introduced. And here we have the same thing as the new oil capacity is 120 milliliters. Just said you know this with the torques and everything else on here. And this is, again, this is the This is this version here, I believe, 6-cylinder. This is the 10P15, which is basically, which was used between, no, this is the, also the PA17, the earlier version of it. Anyway, whenever you have a 10P Nippon, they need 120 milliliters of this refrigerant, pack 46 for R134A, not the 1234H. Why? Because it is a different refrigerant. And I got these here, the Santec O-rings, which is the Mercedes-Benz part 011997634 and for this particular model, they fit in all 6 holes. They're all the same. They look a little bit smaller, but they are protruding out on all 6 sides or positions. And this is the Santec number MT0304 you can use for this. And now the other thing is, what they are telling you on the internet is we have a drain side and we have a suction side. And the suction side is when you're looking from the front this way, it's the right-hand side. And this is a 2-chamber compressor or two-stage compressor. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in about 50 or 55 milliliters in each one of these chambers, and then we rotate this in the clockwise direction because that's how this goes, and that will push this into the discharge side. The discharge side, that is where it comes out, and if you pour that oil in here, the first time this thing kicks in, it will blow all of this oil out of the compressor without doing anything for you. We want to keep this oil inside the compressor, so the compressor is always filled on the suction side with fresh oil after draining it. And then you rotate it through a few times by hand, and that's about it. And I cannot do this because I didn't bring my tripod with me, so I have to do it now. And I got a syringe here just to show you the standard syringe, 60 milliliters, and I'm probably going to use 50 because we're going to need 120. I do not know if there's 20 milliliters in there. 20 milliliters is not very much. I don't think we got 20 milliliters between here and here, but probably 10, I would say, with the splatters. So 100 milliliters are gone. If these people who put this thing in drained it and they put any type of discharge in here, it will be in the evaporator. And the other thing is what this manual tells you is to make sure that your temperature on the vent outlet does not go below plus 5 degrees Celsius. For one is you have to check your temperature in the condenser coil, the sensor in there, and then check the oil level. That's the 2 things they're saying in here. But I can't even pronounce this, the Nippon Denso are compressors with all the data under the technical modifications, air conditioning 1B model 126. It's a 100-page document with all these supplement numbers here. If you look at the regular manuals with these numbers, you will not see the Nippon Denso 10P compressors in there, which you have, and you will get the wrong data. So they don't use 200 milliliters or 300 milliliters. They're using only 120. If you put 200 or 300 milliliter in there on these type of Nippon Denso compressors or the equivalent of the aftermarket, then you're going to have a problem with it. Okay, so I'm going to make another continuation here. When I got this filled up, I'm going to see if I can rotate this then. And then we're going to keep on assembling this and putting it back in the car. Okay, so now we're back here, and I got now the 100 milliliters in here. And we can hear now this thing actually makes some sound. And we're not getting anything out. I wish I could turn this faster, but you do that for a few minutes, that will work the whole thing through. We can see here that we're getting a nice lubrication into the system, and it will come out on the other side sooner than later. And that's it. So now I can put the manifold back on here and put my O-rings in here. I also lubricate the O-rings with a little bit of the oil. This way they are lubricated when I put them together. And then I will show you when we get this thing back in the car. We won't be able to run it yet because I still got to replace all the other O-rings in my system. Okay? Okay, so I got this now coated here. You can see this. They're fully lubricated, and I put some of this on here too. These 4 bolts are going to go back in there, 23 Newton meters. Okay, so this is now the conclusion. This is all the O-rings I have taken out. This one here is the one for the cooler. This one up here, this was in here. I haven't gotten a new one yet, but you can see on how this has changed in shape. It is almost trapezoidal on the outside. This is how old that ring is. And you can see that blue-green stuff from the old system, from the sealant they put in there. So I have to order this one here. I had one for the hose here on the bottom, one of these 2 here. I had here. This is actually the wrong ring because they're thicker. And you can see this on how that flattened out too, but this wasn't the right ring to be, or O-ring to begin with. And then these were all the 6. You can see this, all 6 of them have the same size for the manifold system. And let me just double show you this here underneath here. So I have to order some more O-rings. And then this one here has to be replaced. This one got already the new O-ring. Let me get some light underneath here. This one got the O-ring already in here. And of course the manifold is all seated. All bolts, the 4 on top of the manifold, the one which screws in the pipes to the manifold, the mounting screw back here with the hex key, and these 4 bolts here to mount the compressor to the engine. Every one of them is 23 Newton meters on this compressor. I just got to tighten the belt now, and I need to order a new cap for my pressure test valve on top there. You can see this, that needs to be protected. And of course the green came now out because I had that lubricated. And everything torqued down. You want to go diagonal with the torquing on the manifold. So that's basically it. So I have to replace this here. Then there's one more on the condenser on the top. And then the 3 O-rings, one on the other side of the cooler output, and then inside the cabin to the evaporator coil. Well, and that's pretty much it. Oh, since I'm underneath here, on terms of the what I have to do here with my, since I'm already here, this thing is starting to fall apart here. You can see this. That needs to be replaced. And I'm having a small leakage developing on the power steering pump. They need to be rebuilt. The not the power steering pump, the steering unit here has to be rebuilt. And then I have these here need to be changed. Those, they're pretty much gone now after 3 years. And then we can see this here. This here is breaking apart too. So I have some work coming up here this year, mostly suspension related. This is still good here. This stuff is still good. We have no major leaks, just sweating from the engine itself. Everything else is holding up here pretty well. You can see actually this side here is better, a little bit better than the other one. But here too, these 2 ball joints have to be replaced. Otherwise, there is really nothing major here wrong. I'm upside down, as you can see. Our ground cable is good. This is something you want to check periodically, is how your ground cable is doing to the housing here and so far. So you can actually see this here. So we're good there too. Everything else is fine where we don't have any leaks. Just some rust now. And well, not bad for almost 347,000 miles. I had a little tiny coolant leak here, and I had to tighten the clamp. As you can see, is a little bit rusty. It was seeping very little through there, just a tad bit, enough to warrant, like, to fill up 3 or 4 ounces in 1 year of antifreeze to, you know, bring it up to the level. But this is coming out of here. This is a new hose I put in 3 years ago. So when I changed to water pump, the hose is fine, the clamp is fine. I just had to tighten it a little bit. We keep an eye on it. Everything else is fine. And with that, you have a great